Is Virgin Atlantic Premium Economy worth the money? Today I'm flying from Heathrow to Boston to find out. I'll be boarding the pinkest flight in the world to try out the comfort of the seat, the food and drink, the onboard service, to test if it's worth the upgrade over economy. Plus, we'll look at how it compares to close competitors like British Airways. Let's get going. Well, speaking of British Airways, I actually landed into Heathrow today on a BA flight, so I made my way through connections from Terminal 5 to Terminal 3, where my Virgin Atlantic flight departs from. Virgin do have a separate check-in area for premium economy at Heathrow, plus a separate upper class wing for those travelling in upper class or with Virgin Gold status. But as I've no bags to check in today, I won't be visiting either, but I will be back for an upper class flight review in just a couple of weeks, so I'll check the area out properly then. Now this is actually going to be my first flight with Virgin, but I've managed to get gold status with them thanks to a status match from my BA status, and Virgin are pretty generous with this. All I need to do is book a flight in premium economy or upper class and I was able to match with them. But you're also allowed to do it on a points booking, so it doesn't need to be a cash booking, so that's what I've done today. Just use a few points, I'll tell you exactly how much later on. And even though I've not yet taken that qualifying flight, they applied the status a couple of days ago, so I will be able to access their lounge today. Not only that, but I've also got this status locked in for a full year now, even though the BA status that I've matched it from is actually going to expire in just a couple of weeks. If you don't have status or lounge access however, which would be the case on a standard premium economy ticket with Virgin, I'd recommend avoiding the busy main areas of the terminal in Heathrow Terminal 3, and just find a quiet gate for a bit of peace to relax ahead of the flight, even if it might be a bit of a trek to get there. Virgin's Clubhouse Lounge is located in Lounge Location H, and it's just above the American Airlines Lounge. There is a staircase you can walk up, or if you have mobility issues or you're just feeling a little bit lazy, there is a lift with a seat in it. Quite a comfy seat too. Now I'd read online that Virgin are only meant to admit people 3 hours before departure time, but they had no issues admitting me 7 hours before mine. In fact, it was a very warm welcome, and I was even welcomed back to a lounge that I'd never actually visited when the desk agent saw my gold status. Inside the lounge it was all a little bit busy to start with, but there was still plenty of seating available, some very comfortable seats and some also quite quirky ones around the place as well. There was also a bar area, a relaxation area where you could have a proper lie down, a completely unused yoga area, and if you make your way upstairs there's even an outdoor terrace. Now this is a pretty great feature, and there's no one else up here. Great views of the planes, plenty taking off. So I started things off over at the dining area, and you can order via a QR code, but the staff also circulate with paper menus if you prefer, and everyone who interacted in there was really friendly and offered great service. It was about 11:30 AM and breakfast was still being served, so I went for a sausage sandwich accompanied with a flat white and a glass of champagne. No idea what the champagne was, but it was very nice. The sausage sandwich and the flat white were also very good. And finally, I finished things off with an electrolyte drink. I've never seen anything like this offered in a lounge before, but I think it's a great shout when people are going to have a few drinks and also get on a plane where you are going to be very dehydrated. Ended up having a few of these over the course of my stay in the lounge. After breakfast I relocated over to the bar area, and as soon as I sat down I was approached by one of the servers and offered a drink. Genuinely can't say enough good things about all the staff in this lounge. I'm very used to the BA lounges where, aside from the odd exception, most of the staff there border between apathetic and hostile, so this was a real breath of fresh air. I spent some time relaxing and enjoying a Negroni or two off the extensive cocktail menu, whilst finishing off an edit of a Virgin Voyages video. That should already be up on the channel, and I will be back on board with Virgin Voyages fairly soon. Eventually I got a bit peckish, so I ordered some more food. There's plenty of substantial meals on offer, but I started with some light bites of a duck bow and a cheese plate, all of which was really excellent quality. Overall, really enjoyed this lounge. Despite how busy it was a little bit early on, it soon quietened out and it was a really relaxing time. And the food, drink and service were all excellent, and I put all three of those elements ahead of what their top competitor BA offers in their first class lounge. But eventually it was time to board the plane, so I made my way over to the gate. I'd been checking the seat selection in the run up to the flight, and it was looking like the seat next to me was going to be free, so I was keeping my fingers crossed that no one in economy was going to go for a last minute upgrade. But based on how quiet it was looking over at the gate when I arrived, it did seem like it wasn't going to be a very busy flight at all. There was a bit of a wait at the gate before boarding started, but eventually it was time to get on board the Queen of the Skies. No, not a Boeing 747. This is just the name that Virgin gives to this plane, named after Queen Elizabeth II. Today's flight is on an Airbus A330-900neo, and premium economy seats are set out in a 232 configuration, and I've gone for a window seat at the back in 27A. I made my way over to my seat in this very pink tinted cabin. My first impression of the seats were that they didn't look like the nicest seats in the world, and maybe Virgin are trying to hide the slight ugliness of the seat with the lighting. Waiting at my seat for me was a blanket, a pillow, earphones and a menu for today's flight. Amenity kits though were noticeably absent, but we'll take a look at everything that was provided there during the flight. For now, let's take a look around the seat. A decent amount of legroom, certainly a lot better than economy, but far from industry leading. There was a footrest as well that could be folded down, but I didn't find it added too much to the comfort of the seat, and I did end up just folding that up for most of the flight. The in-seat storage pocket was incredibly limited, very small space and you couldn't really get much in there. However, there was a further small storage pocket under the armrest. I was quite glad to have the seat next to me free because that meant I was able to use that space for storage as well. A very good size, I believe, 13.3-inch screen and a very modern screen ahead. And also some very good options for charging, with universal power outlets between the seats, wireless charging in the armrest, and a USB port under the IFE screen. All it needs is USB-C to be perfect. The tray table pops out from the left armrest. It's a good size and pretty sturdy. Sometimes when you have these fold-over tray tables they wobble a lot, but thankfully not the case here. Pretty well designed. A leg rest could be deployed from this button in the armrest, but I didn't find it particularly effective. It didn't really do much to support the weight of my legs. The seat has a decent recline as well, although I did notice that with my seat being at the back row that when it reclined it did hit the back wall, so it at least seemed like it might get less reclined than some of the other seats. Each seat had individual air vents and reading lights, and there was plenty of overhead storage available. As I was waiting for boarding to complete, I decided to have a quick look at the menu, and I was pretty impressed by the offering. In particular, that second meal offering was looking a lot more substantial than what I'd received in BA Premium Economy just a couple of weeks before this flight. Pretty solid drinks menu too, and I appreciate the inclusion of cappuccinos, unlike the terrible instant coffee that you get on other airlines like BA. It wasn't too long before a member of crew came around offering Prosecco or orange juice. I took the Prosecco, which is quite nice and a good size too, and I then received a warm welcome from the cabin manager. As with the lounge, I was welcomed back on board for being a very loyal member of the Virgin Atlantic Flying Club, since I was a gold member despite the fact it was the first flight, and as I properly settled into the seat to get ready for takeoff, I was quite relieved today that the cabin was so empty. I think, although the seat width is good, it did feel like one of the more restrictive premium economy cabins I've been in, particularly around my feet. But because there were so few passengers on board, it just felt like I had tons of space available. The animated safety demo with exaggerated bad fake American accents played, and despite being ready for takeoff 20 minutes early, we pushed back 10 minutes late due to air traffic control restrictions. Good old Heathrow, eh? So whilst we're getting underway, let's talk about cost of today's flight. I decided to use some Virgin points, and I was able to book the flight using primarily points that I'd recently earned on a stay at Virgin Hotels in New York. That hotel stay had earned me 9,400 points. The cost of this flight in premium economy was just 10,500 Virgin points, plus £370.42 in taxes and charges. Now, this being my first flight with Virgin, I am a bit inexperienced with Virgin points and status. There's a few things not to like, such as the fact that they use dynamic pricing for reward flights, so sometimes business class could be hundreds of thousands or even millions of points. Plus they do levy incredibly large taxes and charges compared with other airlines on reward bookings. However, there's also plenty to love too. For instance, if you can find a savoury reward flight like this one, it's very few points to book, even if the taxes are quite high. Plus reward flights actually still earn you tier points towards airline status, so it is actually possible to earn gold with Virgin without ever getting a full cash fare. If you are well versed in Virgin's ecosystem, please do let me know if you've got any important tips or tricks or anything to be aware of in the comments. I definitely think I'll be flying Virgin and other SkyTeam airlines a bit more this year, so I'll be keen to know if there's anything I should be looking out for. And before we make it up in the air, a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join them to support my channel whilst receiving bonus videos and early access, check the link in the description or the QR code on screen. Thanks again. Now let's get up in the sky. Up in the air, I made myself comfortable and I got that seat reclined. I've recently started always booking the back row in premium economy so that I can just freely recline without ever bothering anyone. The downside of this though is that you often risk not getting your choice of meal when you're at the back of the cabin. However, Virgin actually allowed pre-booking of meals online, so there was no such risk here, so I was able to pre-order my chicken tikka masala, which I was very much looking forward to. And being able to recline for the entire flight well outweighs any slight downside of the recline not being quite as much in the back row. I had a look at the in-flight entertainment. The screen was incredibly responsive and there was a good selection of recent releases. It's not industry leading, but I found plenty I'd like to watch. I also love little touches like how easy it was to add films to your watch list whilst browsing the selection without needing to click into each option like you would on some IFE systems, so I was able to quickly build a watch list of options. ultimately settling on Ballerina to watch first. Bluetooth connectivity was also available, so I had the option of using my own earphones. Before doing so, however, I did try out the provided headphones. I found these to be terrible, flimsy, and what you'd expect from economy. On other airlines, you might expect to receive earphones more in line with what you get in business class when you fly premium. Thankfully, the Bluetooth connectivity worked just fine. In terms of other entertainment, Wi-Fi was available, but a very steep cost that didn't seem worth it for a 7-hour flight. You can get 20 minutes for free just for watching an advert at least. Now, I assume this would be a one-time deal, and it probably is supposed to be, but I did find that I was actually able to just watch an advert every 20 minutes to keep getting free Wi-Fi, although this trick did unfortunately run out after about 3 times, so at least I got an hour free from it. I made a quick pit stop in the bathrooms, and top marks to Virgin for having a separate bathroom just for premium economy, but they do lose some big marks for not having any soap in here. I actually had to open the door and ask for some. They did send me over to the other bathroom, which I think was there for business class, which did have some nice Ren products in there, and eventually they did stock the soap in the premium economy bathroom. And they regained a few more points for having a foot pedal bin. When I made it back to my seat, I could see that the in-flight service had already started. I ordered a gin and tonic, and this came accompanied by some corn nibbles. I was also handed what was described as a hot towel, but was more like a lukewarm wet wipe. And whilst I was sat enjoying that gin and watching the entertainment, I received 2 further greetings from crew members to welcome me back on board due to my gold status. It did feel a bit odd to be constantly welcomed back to an airline that I was flying with for the first time. And it wasn't too long after that drink service before they started dinner. Dinner was all served on one tray, and it did still have plastic lids on it. And the foil hadn't been removed from the main course either. Not a major thing, but it does put that service more in line with what you'd expect in economy, and I was pretty glad to have the extra space of the tray table next to me to put my drinks and plastic lids on, as space would have been limited otherwise. Dinner was also served alongside Virgin's signature salt and pepper shakers, which cheekily encourage you to pinch them, and I of course did take them as a nice souvenir of the flight. The salad starter wasn't really for me, but let's get the foil off and try that main course. It's definitely not my biggest portion, but I've got to say, very nice, good quality. Yeah, lovely main course there, and then I was able to finish that off with some biscuits and cheese, and the dessert. A strawberry and rose Eton mess, which was very tasty and finished the meal off nicely. Once finished, my tray was very promptly cleared by the crew, who were delivering really good service on this flight. They very regularly proactively came around the cabin to offer additional drinks, something that hadn't happened at all on my recent BA Premium Economy flight. And in addition to this, nothing was ever cleared away without asking if there's anything else that they could get me. Now, I'm sure it didn't hurt how quiet today's cabin was, but still very nice to get that proactive level of service. After a couple of hours, I started feeling a bit peckish. But maybe the food in the galley can save me. After all, it's Virgin's Wonderwall. I did try singing that bit, but trust me, you don't want to hear that. But yes, Virgin called their food station in the galley the Wonderwall, not the Wonderwall, as some people do call it. On this flight is basically a little basket of small snacks and soft drinks. The popcorn and chocolate that I grabbed from there were absolutely delicious though, and a great snack to have along with a film. After a while I decided to try out the bedding. The pillow I found to be very thin, flimsy, and also a little bit lumpy. I'm not sure it would deliver a great deal of comfort for sleep, to be honest, so I was quite glad this wasn't an overnight. The blanket was quite nice though, but again it was a bit weird. It had a strange shape that seemed to have a split for your legs. Not sure why they decided on that or why it was needed, but it was at least a nice material. The flight was passing by very quickly, just watching the entertainment and getting the regular service from the crew bringing around drinks. And then about an hour and a half before landing, so it would have been around midnight UK time, 7 PM US time, we were then served our second meal, which was to be afternoon tea. It was obviously quite a few hours past the afternoon at this point, but I was still looking forward to it. And I was quite interested to see how it was going to compare to afternoon teas that I'd had on other airlines like BA and Emirates. The sandwich was chicken Caesar rather than an assortment, and it was pretty small, but it was quite tasty too. I also noticed that I seemed to be getting served ahead of the people in front of me, which may have been due to my newly acquired gold status. Based on what I'd actually overheard, it seemed like they may be running out of some options at that point, so if they hadn't served me first I might not have ended up with the option I wanted. The sandwich was accompanied by a cheddar and apple chutney quiche, an apricot and lavender macaron, and a scone which I ate like any civilised person would, with the cream first then jam. A lovely meal, although I do think my Emirates Premium Economy afternoon tea was better than this. I've also had better sandwiches in the afternoon tea with BA, but overall this second meal was so much better than what I got for my second meal on my BA Premium Economy flight a few weeks earlier, where all I'd got was a little pastry. Overall though, I was pretty happy with this flight and had a very enjoyable travel day as a whole. Because I'd flown with BA just a couple of weeks earlier, I was regularly directly comparing the two in my mind during the flight. There's no doubt at all that the service from the crew on Virgin was so much better than BA, a good couple of notches above, and significantly more proactive, although I'm sure the almost empty cabin certainly didn't hurt with that. There's also some really nice modern touches in this seat, such as the wireless charging and the Bluetooth connectivity, which definitely add to the comfort of the experience. But there were also a good few areas where Virgin falls short. First is the seat itself. I did think that the seat comfort wasn't the best, and I do think BA have a more comfortable seat. Something about the padding or shape of the seat itself and the headrest that I just find more comfortable on BA. And I do think the BA footrest is better too. I did get incredibly lucky on this flight, however. There was no one sat next to me, and the couple who were sat in front of me didn't recline their seats at all for the entire flight. That's unheard of in premium economy, as usually when the people in front recline, it really significantly impacts the amount of space that you have in that seat and really affects the comfort and ease of getting out of the seat. So a massive thank you to those two heroes in front of me. It's worth noting as well in this flight that amenities were completely lacking, right down to the lack of soap in the bathroom, which is inexcusable. Overall, I'm not sure if I'd pay cash for this, unless it was quite a cheap upgrade from economy. However, as a points booking, it's a fairly easy no-brainer for me. Just 10,500 points for this flight, and the taxes and charges are then similar to the cost of an economy cash flight. So it's basically 10,500 points to upgrade from economy to premium economy in my mind. And that amount of points can be very quickly and easily earned. To get it that cheap though, you do need to look out for those saver reward flights. So if you do like flexibility about when you can go away, then you might find those difficult to get. It's also not a huge number of additional points to get upper class if you can find saver reward availability for that. And in fact, I will be back with Virgin Atlantic very soon to try out their upper class on a flight to New York, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. And if you want to see how this flight we've just been on compares to a premium economy with other airlines, watch one of these videos next. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.